So Khidr at this point makes it clear that he and Musa A.S cannot go on while on entirely different planes of perception and understanding. So they have to part ways. But before leaving, he explains why he did what he did. And I'll just quickly summarize, as I said before also, that it's all given in these verses. So he explains that the ship was destroyed because if it hadn't been damaged, then it would have been seized by some pirates further ahead, right? And the man to whom it belonged would have suffered more losses. As for the boy who had been killed, it was because if he had grown up, he would have been a cause of deep distress to his parents. And the wall, if the wall had fallen, it would have exposed and made vulnerable the savings of the orphans which had been buried under it, right? So, now with this explanation, it all begins to make sense. All of the unreasonable, unfair things apparently that Hazrat Khidr did, they all actually fall into place, and we realize that Khidr's actions, which seemed so unreasonable and so unfair, are actually compassionate and fair and rational and rooted in a very deep wisdom that comes from the knowledge of the unknown that we do not have. Now think of the analogy that we made earlier. Just like this, the decrees of fate, किस्मत की बातें जो होती हैं हमारी ज़िंदगी में और दुनिया में और हमें समझ नहीं आती, if we know the hikmah behind them, if we could reach that hikmah, we would realize that it all makes sense, that it all comes from the wisdom of Allah and is fair, is reasonable, is compassionate, right? Is rational, but it is beyond the pale of our limited understanding. So this parable that I chose to share with you today comes to mean so much more. It actually means that things happen in our world and in our lives beyond our control, and often they seem to be unfair and without rhyme or reason, right? And as I mentioned before, it is human to be unsettled, pained, grieved by all of that. It is human to question, to wonder, to seek explanations, right? To be unsatiated. However, very often, the answer, the explanation, the wisdom behind these things is beyond what we can ever understand, because it is withheld from us. And why? Because this is part of our test, right? यही तो हमारी आजमाइश है कि हमें उस हिकमत तक हम नहीं पहुंच सकते, लेकिन हमें तवक्कल करना है, right? यही तो हमारा टेस्ट है, that we don't know, but we have to trust, we have to believe and carry on in spite of all that, right? So we don't know, and we have to live as human beings with this not knowing. And how do we do that? How do we deal with all these unanswered questions, the pain, the storm of restlessness within? How can we find peace in the midst of all this? Given, this essential human condition, हमें सुकून, चैन कहाँ से मिलेगा? By accepting that it is all right to not have answers, and by reaching a state in which getting those answers is no longer required. We don't need those answers anymore. Why? Because we have something greater than the answers that we seek in vain. And what is that? Trust in Allah, tawakkul, through the belief that behind everything that happens is the perfect hikmah or wisdom of Allah that is above and beyond our knowledge and our limited understanding. And in Allah's master plan, it all makes sense. Everything fits perfectly into place, and in its time, in the grand mural that the painter has painted. We trust in that plan. We believe in it, and we entrust Him with everything over which we have no control. And that is where we get peace. Now, I had a friend of mine who lost her father, who she was very close to, as a child, right? So she said that she always used to question, and it really affected her relationship with Allah, that why did this have to happen to her? And then she said that later on in life, she realized that it was because of that experience of pain and bereavement that she actually developed empathy and understanding of other people's pain and loss. And she said that is when I understood that I may not understand the reason behind this decision of Allah to take her father away from her at such a young age, but I began to value the learning. I began to value what came out of that experience, and I began to channelize that into positive energy. And that is when I broke free from that, you could say, crippling skepticism and negativity as a result of suffering. So, just wrapping up what we learned, we all really must learn to say, and may Allah give us this ability to say, "Oh Allah, we do not know and we do not understand, but we believe that you know better, and we believe that everything that happens is out of your supreme wisdom. May we trust in that wisdom, and may this trust or tawakkul in your wisdom become our strength, so that we can accept your plan for us with patience, sabr. And may this sabr be our means to find peace in this world." Ameen summa ameen.